All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is February 12th, I believe, 2021. Um, we're doing a quick update here on the front yard garden. So we're looking at a lemon zest mango tree. This tree is 4 years old. The blooms are looking really good this year. We're not seeing any signs of anthracnose or any other fungal issues, which are very common in mangoes, but this year the blooms are very, very clean, and so I'm happy to see that. I think it's because we have had a pretty dry winter season so far, and I think that has helped with the humidity and the preventing of the spreading of diseases and stuff like that. So here is an update on the jaboticaba. This is the red jabo. So we have a couple of them here in the ground, and then we have a few more over here. So these jaboticabas should be starting fruit this fall. They grow pretty fast. So by this time, or I'm sorry, by fall of this year, this tree should I would say almost double in size, like my other trees that I've had before. Here's the grimmel. So the grimmel is in the ground, and this is a pretty decent sized grimmel, as you can see. I also expect this guy to probably fruit in a year or so. So excited about that. Grimmel is supposed to be really, really good. Here's a Pina colada mango. It's supposed to be a really good mango. Complex flavors from what I'm hearing, and also it's a pretty productive variety. So small tree, 3 gallon. We'll see how much it grows by the end of the year, but here's a quick update. It just got in the ground, I would say a week or so ago. So Pina colada. And here is my prime May mango. It's a Thai variety that I'm a big fan of Thai mangoes because I love that sort of floral aftertaste to it. So this is supposed to be a really productive late season variety. So I'm trying to spread out my mango tree or my mangoes so that it sort of produces and ripen up at different times. So both prime May and lemon zest, at least for me in my area, because I am in kind of a cooler area in terms of temperature, and so the fruits take its time to ripe. So for me, both of these varieties normally ripen a little later in than the other ones. All right, and here's a sugar apple that is already flowering and producing fruit. And so this is from seed, and I'm probably going to be putting this guy in the ground soon, like I did with the other two, which I'll show you in a bit here. But so these are true sugar apples. They're not hybrid. They're not Atemoyas. They're not Cherimoya. A lot of people get that confused, but my favorite, hands down, is always the sugar apple. All right, here's the other sugar apples that I did put in the ground. So the sugar apple is a pretty good sized tree. Here's another one. So I have about 5 or 6 different sugar apples that I've put in the ground this year. It's unprotected, though I did plant it close to the house, under the eave of the house, and you can see while the other fruit trees like the guava over there, it has a little bit of some cold damage. You see the leaves getting purple or like a dark red color, and while you're seeing the sugar apple is really kind of unfazed. And I think being next to the house and being partially under the roof of the house, it really helps maintain a good temperature for these guys. So I interlace different variety or different trees, different types of trees into my garden. So this is a bumpo Cherimoya. It's supposed to be one of the best ones. I've had the fruit. It's actually really good. I love the complex taste of Cherimoyas in general compared to an Atemoya. But to be honest, at this point, and I kind of changed back and forth on this opinion, but at this point I do prefer an Atemoya over a Cherimoya. just because of that sweetness and sort of that custard sugar apple aftertaste to a Atemoya that is very different than a Cherimoya. So here is a Golden Queen mango tree. So Golden Queen produce some really large fruit. You can see fruits up to 5-6 pounds per fruit, from what I understand. And we'll see. I was blessed enough to have a buddy of mine from Florida pick me up this variety. It's really difficult to find in California, and so this is Golden Queen. This is my multi-grafted cocktail mango tree. So I have about 6 different varieties that are grafted onto this tree. I started training it about a year or two ago, maybe over a year, and it's holding well. But the idea is I'm spreading the branching so that it can distribute the growth, because one of the issues that I understood from listening to some the pros out there is that the mangoes tend to start to compete against itself and overshade the other part of the scion, which can cause dieback for that particular scion or variety that you're growing. So it's important to kind of spread it to allow space for each of the variety to develop. And so that's the idea with this project here that I have. So I have pineapple pleasure, I have Pimsen moon, I have Pickering, I have I don't know what else, Dot, I have Catchu, Harvest Moon, Glen, just a lot of different varieties in this Manila rootstock. All right, so here is a kohala Longan tree. I spent a lot of time shaping this guy as well. So the idea is to keep it pretty reasonable size, to easy to harvest, and that's been going well for me. So this is a kohala Longan. It's a really pretty tree, and it produced really delicious fruit. Not my favorite type of Longan. I'm growing a few varieties here in the garden. I have about 4 different kinds, and this variety for me is probably actually the least favorite, but it's one of the most vigorous, pretty variety in my opinion. The foliage is it's beautiful compared to some of the other ones that I have in my collection. So this is a Thai wax jambu. This is a jumbo Thai, which is a green mixed with like a white green variety. It's really sweet. One of the, I guess, description that I've heard people described it as is it tastes like 7-Up, and I'm not sure I totally agree with that. It does definitely have a little bit of that taste to it, but it's just very unique. It's a really refreshing fruit to try. It's one of my favorite type of fruit. So I do have about 5 different varieties that I'm growing that are in the ground, and then I have several more that are in pots. So these are wax jambu, and not to be confused with rose apple, because rose apple is a relative, but it's actually a inferior fruit to wax jambu. It's just very fragrant, and that's why it's called rose apple, but it doesn't really have a lot of flesh to seed ratio, and the flesh is just, it's very different. So it's a little windy today, but in between everything here, between the wax jambu and the Longan, next to it we have the Atemoya. So this is an Atemoya seedling that I grafted multiple things to it. To be honest, I've lost a lot of the tags. I just haven't been keeping up, so I'm not too sure what I've grafted, but the fruits are really delicious. Next to it is Lisa that I'm starting to multi-graft on, that I am keeping a label. So yeah, and both of these produce really delicious Atemoya. All right, and here is the white sapote. This variety is called Subel, and I planted kind of close to the sidewalk, because with the intention that it's just going to overreach the fence and provide the neighbors with some fruit as well. This tree is going to be very abundant in fruits once it gets going, so I'm not too worried. I'll be happy to share the fruit, but yeah, this is a white sapote. All right, and over here is my jackfruit grove. So we're going to go through a few different varieties of jackfruit, and I have a few more that will be in the ground this coming spring. Right here is the ginberry, which is a citrus family. Produce these translucent looking berries that are sweet, very sweet. It's delicious, but it doesn't have a lot of flesh. It's more of a novelty than anything. Has a lot of nostalgic values because as kids, when we were younger in Vietnam, we would eat these things, on the sidewalk. It just grows wild. So, but I will be digging this guy up and potting it up, and I'm going to plant a jackfruit right here because I want this entire row to be all jackfruit. So here we go. All right, so this is the first jackfruit tree. This is a gold nugget. So gold nugget is supposed to be an earlier producing variety. It's a early season, so I try to mix and match my jackfruits based on the season to, because one single jackfruit is going to feed pretty much the family, so you don't want everything to go to grow all at the same time. But this is growing really well. I expect this guy to fruit probably in a year or so. I would say next year probably I would see some flowers starting to form. Typically the male flowers would start going out first for the first year. You're not going to get any female flowers, but then the second year you're going to get some male that starts out, and then you're going to see some female flowers that follow. So you may get 1 or 2 fruit the second year for a tree this size. So this is gold nugget. Moving over one, this is a seedling variety, though this is an air layer of a seedling that is in California here. It's actually from my dad's tree. He planted a seedling about 17 or 15 years ago, give or take, and it produced really delicious orange fruit, colored fruit that are super sweet and fragrant. So yeah, I air layer one of the branches, and here we are. So this tree doesn't actually have a taproot, but it still does really well, and it grows pretty fast. So I'm very happy to see that. And there's actually a couple fruits on here that you can see are maturing. It's overwintering, so I suspect that the quality of the fruit isn't going to be all there. But even if it gets to the ripening stage, I would be extremely happy, because I definitely don't expect it to do that, given that we're in winter right now. But the fact that it's still sizing up, it's a really good sign. So there's one here, and then there's actually another one over here. So this is another fruit we got here. So the average size of this variety, and I call it the Thomas variety, named after my dad, the average size of this, I would say it's about 3 to 4 times this size. So it's a pretty sizable fruit. I would say probably around, I don't know, maybe around 20 pounds or so for a mature fruit off of this variety. So I'm going to skip over some other fruit trees I have, but I have some lychee, I have a Thai guava, I have a raw honey mango that's growing really well. I have soursop that's overwintering really well because of, again, that same strategy, close to the house, by the eave of the house partially. I have the Alano Sapodilla, so I'm going to kind of skip over those guys because we're going to be covering jackfruits. One of my most favorite sort of things to grow. So this is a hybrid jack. So it's a hybrid between a Mito is the name, a Vietnamese name, but it's a champadek called Boca. So it's a hybrid between a jackfruit and a champadek. It's growing really well, straight from Florida. This is from Excalibur Nursery in Florida, and it survived the travels, and this is his second year growing, so very excited to see this guy take off this year. Um, I have an orange crush jackfruit right here. So this is me treating it with copper fungicide in order to mitigate any sort of fungal issues that may come. It's very common if you grow jackfruit in Southern California. You realize that there are these issues. So it's really easy to deal with it, but so yeah, you just sort of treat it in advance. So when the rain comes, you don't, these issues where the leaf starts developing these spotting, it doesn't escalate. So that's the orange crush. Here is a Fairchild's First. So this is one of the first varieties that was developed by Fairchild Nursery, and this one's actually already producing fruit at this point. But it's a beautiful tree. It's beautiful foliage, vigorous. It had those fungal issues that I mentioned, and but with the right treatment, it's a non-issue. So. By the way, we're skipping over a couple other trees. These are black sapote. This variety is called Bernecker. Excellent variety. So if you are interested in getting a black sapote, I would highly recommend a Bernecker. Because forget about what people say about black sapote being bland and tasteless and not worth it. Trust me, it's worth growing, and that's coming from a person that is growing a lot of different things. So I would highly recommend a black sapote Bernecker. Next to it, I have another black sapote. This is a seedling. It's highly productive. You can see that there's just tons of fruit on this tree. In fact, there were so many fruits on it that it broke off a huge branch right here. So that's the this variety here actually does not, let me see if I can move back to get the whole shot of the tree. First of all, it's a beautiful tree, beautiful foliage, and it's one of my most favorite when it comes to an evergreen, glossy leaves. It has all those characteristics about having a front yard, ornamental tree. And but unfortunately, this seedling is not great tasting. It's sort of bland. It's sort of that's semi-sweet, barely sweet, taste to it. And so this is very common in black sapote, and this is probably why it gets its bad reputation. But again, Bernecker, it's a totally different ball game. So trust on this, guys. Definitely worth growing. All right. This is the other jackfruit tree. This is a Pina. So this is also a hybrid between a champadec and jackfruit. So you can see that from the the branching here that it was holding a fruit already. So my Pina definitely fruited, and I harvested it. Unfortunately, it overwintered and it was sitting on the mulch, and of course the mulch was wet and wasn't essentially causing it to rot. So this is the first time that it fruited. So like I mentioned earlier, jackfruit will tend to, on its first year of fruit, at least in California from my experience, they'll produce a fruit, but it's going to produce late, and you're not going to have enough time, enough heat to get it to fully ripen over the winter, especially if you have a winter that's wet and the condition that I mentioned. So expect that fruit to not reach full maturity, but the next year I do expect a much earlier flowering season, and I do expect the fruit to fully develop. So this coming year will be hopefully indicative of that. And this tree is, I would say, about 15 feet tall at this point. It's getting pretty large. All right, so here's the Camito. So Camito is it's also called the star apple fruit, and this tree is a seedling. So this was planted from seed, and it's, I would say, about, I'm 5'8", and this tree I would say about 6 feet. So this is about 6 feet tall this year. and I expect it to reach probably 10 feet this year. So it's growing really fast, and it's starting to form that beautiful canopy. So this is the Kamito. I don't expect it to flowers until at least another probably 3 to 4 years. It's because it is a seedling. Sometimes they take from 7 years, sometimes they take 15 years to produce fruit. So you just really have to be patient with this one. Next to it is a grafted variety of star fruit or star apple. So this one is flowering because it's grafted, and this is it's only about 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall, no, about 4 feet tall, and yeah, so it's a grafted variety called I think Corongo, and it's from Florida. So yeah, I planted these two on the side because I know that they take a really long time and they do need their space. So I tend to just let it sort of go out the fence. Maybe one day it will hold some fruit. Okay, so right next to it we have a Morena. This is a Sapodilla. There's some fruits holding on it, on both my Alano and my Morena. So this Morena is getting to be pretty good size. I'm trying to sway it this way so that it can provide a canopy for my car, but also to give room for my jackfruit and my Kamito. So you can see that I'm tying it to the fence. But yeah, this produced a really good fruit. Too good for my own taste, to be honest. The sweetness of it is just overpowering. It's literally like eating brown sugar. And I've eaten other Sapodilla, and Sapodilla is one of my favorite things to eat. But this variety it was too much for me. It was just way too sweet. It's almost syrupy sweet. So this is Morena. It's produced large fruit. Has a bit of more of a reddish tint to the flesh than your typical brown with other varieties of Sapodilla. So out of all my varieties that I have had, and I've had only about 4 varieties, my favorite so far is the Alano. It's tried and true. It's not super exotic like some of the other varieties, but Alano is just it's effective. It's good. It's not overly sweet, but it's still very sweet. Good size fruit, good production on the Alano. So yeah. So here is my grafted macadamia nut tree, and this tree is growing really well. It's just been in the ground for a year or so here, or actually less than a year. I'll say about 5-6 months. I bought it as a 15-gallon tree, and it just took off. And I planted it out in the street because it's a nut tree. I have a lot of squirrels here. Hopefully it'll distract them, and also I love macadamia nuts, so I hopefully that one day we'll get a really nice harvest off of this guy. And also the flowers are really pretty. So I have a couple figs growing here. I have I-258 and Black Madeira just growing on the side of the fence. If my neighbors are interested, they can harvest it as well. But this is a strawberry fruit tree. So the strawberry fruit tree is about 15 months old in the ground, and it just took off. And I planted on the side of the street, again for the neighbors, but my kids love them. They produce so much abundantly that I just I don't stress out if other people harvest them. But so far my neighbors doesn't seem to be interested in any of my fruit, so maybe they just don't know about them. Alright, walking over here we have the calamansi tree that is just super abundant. These are citrus, and they produce really delicious, super fragrant citrus fruit that you could use for cooking, you could use for juicing, things like that. I have a few. So this is my banana grove. I have about 6-7 different varieties. I have some dwarf namwas, I have some goldfingers, I have some manzano apple bananas, I have some Thai varieties, I have I don't know what else is in here, but I just buy them and I stick them together, and honestly the pups come up and I just lose track of what's what. But these particular ones are dwarf, so they don't get much larger than this. Behind it there you can see A few rack of bananas are forming, so that's a Thai variety there. I think that's actually, that might be the manzano, but I was able to harvest a pretty good rack this year of manzanos, apple bananas, and yeah, they grow really well as long as you dedicate a space for them and you kind of keep them under control. You mulch them really well because they're heavy feeders, and they just eat organic matter. So no chemical fertilizers. I don't do any of that for my bananas. I just literally all it does is it gets mulched, and it produces so much fruit. And we use the leaves for cooking, for prepping desserts and things like that too. So. Alright, so we're in the backyard. I won't be able to have time to show you guys everything, but I'll show you a few things that I have in the backyard. So this is a wax jambu. This is the black diamond, probably my most least favorite variety of wax jambu. So if you guys are going out and you're new to gardening, new to tropical fruits, don't get a black diamond wax jambu. It is not good. It's watery, spongy. It's not really firm flesh, crispy, sweet. It's not those characteristics, which is what you want in a wax jambu. So I will be top working these guys and be grafting different varieties to it. I have black gold, I have red rocket, Thai jumbo, green diamond. I also have the Thai long green. There's just so many different varieties that are so much better. So here we are. And here is a look at the Barbados cherry tree that is trimmed back extensively this year. It got too much too fast, and yeah, I trimmed the trunk as much as I can for aesthetic reasons. If I had considerable space, I would let this guy bush out and produce berries and that are easier harvest, but I don't have the space, and so I just grow it in this form, which is kind of a tree form, and so harvesting is a little bit challenging. So you do have to get up on the ladder to get a hold of the fruit. So, or you could shake it and the fruit will drop, but sometimes it will damage if it's too ripened. So I got a few things in pots. These are another variety of Sapodilla. It's called macaque. This is the star fruit. This is Sri Kambangan. I have a couple of different varieties of star fruit, Sri Kambangan and Kajang. Those are supposedly two of the best varieties. The more common varieties you're going to see are like Karari and some other ones, but I've had those and they're all good. To be honest with you, I'm not like a huge star fruit fan, but these are supposed to be the dessert varieties, so take it for what it is. I haven't tasted them. I've tasted the Sri Kambangan. I haven't tasted the Kajang, so it's to be proven if it's actually worth all the hype. Here's my sickly sweetheart lychee tree that is trying to flower and trying to come back to life. So you see lots of new growth coming out, which is positive sign. This beautiful tree was super flush, last year produced a lot of fruit, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely one of my favorite trees in the garden. Lychee, if you grow lychee, you would know that they take a very long time to size up, to develop flowers and fruit and all that. And so I was super happy to see that. But last year, for whatever reason, it just starts dying back. It had some fungal issues. I could tell by the symptoms that it had that it was fungal. And anyway, I cut back the tree as much as I can. Got rid of all the fruits, and I basically just removed all those dead foliage and hit it with copper fungicide, and that did the trick. The tree sustained itself. It stopped dying back, and you can see the trees coming back. So very happy to see that positive note. Here's another wax jambu. If you don't already tell, it's one of my favorite things to grow, wax jambu. Also, wax jambu is one of those that also get a bad rep as well, because people that have tried it probably try a really inferior variety that just didn't know that the potential of the fruit. So wax jambu is is absolutely one of my favorites thing to eat, and I could eat a lot of it at one time. Unlike say a jackfruit, which one jackfruit and you're kind of fed up. But I love wax jambu, and this particular variety is called the Red Rocket. So produce these elongated red fruit that has a bit of a bell shape to it. Red Rocket is the champ. I've tried other ones. I've tried Black Gold. It's obviously very subjective because everybody's taste is different. But for me, Red Rocket is my favorite so far, and there are still varieties that I have not tried yet. So, all right. So I know this video is getting long, but I'm going to try to shorten it as much as I can here. But here's a multi-grafted cocktail citrus tree. I think every house needs to have a cocktail multi-grafted citrus tree because they don't take up a lot of space, and you can have, and they're very productive. So even a small area, small branching like that, where it's a different variety, you get a lot of that variety. So you don't need a whole tree of it, in other words. So I have pomelo, I have mandarins, a couple different kinds. I have Kefir lime, I have oranges, I have other limes, I have bear limes, I have sweet orange, even blood orange, Washington navel orange, Caracara orange up there. I have sumo, and yeah, this tree is just completely loaded with different varieties. And I think I'll stop here. I won't keep grafting because the tree does need space to develop those growth, and so you don't necessarily want to overgraft, and it's going to get smothered out and die back anyway. So the top canopy I'm keeping in limes. So a good chunk of it is the limes, because you can tell I don't really use the limes all that much, but when you do need it, it's one of those where for cooking, for making sauces, for drinking beer or whatever, you need to have a lime tree in your house. So we try to keep a good chunk of this tree left just for the lime. So this is my little makeshift dragon fruit trellis that I use. Some plumbing pipings that I have extras lying around the house. It's working really well. This is kind of a common model that people do for trellises. But yeah, so these are two different varieties in each pot. Try to get ones that have cross-pollination properties to them. Over here you can see some other varieties of dragon fruit, Vietnamese white, which is a universal pollinator, and I have some other red varieties over there as well. So I have a few other trellises on the side of the yard, which we're not going to see in this video. It's just getting way too long, but yeah, I have a few different varieties of dragon fruit, and I'm trying to expand on that collection as much as I can, because they're delicious, easy to grow, and they don't need a lot of space. So here is the little middle section of the yard, which is, call it the Oasis, because it has a nice water feature. I have fish in there and things like that. But I grow mostly my vegetables here, my peppers and my herbs and things like that. By the way, I have sugar apples in there from seed. So these are red sugar apples that I planted from seed, and it's growing really well. So same goes with this guy. Interlaced it with some papaya, some named cultivars of papaya. It's supposed to be really good, but we'll see. And right here is the Ilama, however you call it. It's an Annona. So this is a red variety. I'm not sure what variety it is specifically, but it's red. Moving over to the right, we have a Saigon dupius, and I'm not sure how you pronounce that actually, but so it's flowering and it's very productive this year. And I have a seedling grafted to it. So the seedling is less than 12 months old, and it's just boom. It's a good 5 feet growth just within a month. So I expect the seedling to take off fast. Next to a pomelo tree, got pretty good production off of it this year. Not as much as I wanted, but certainly next year I think we're going to see a much better production. So I can see the trees very vigorous, it's putting a lot of new growth. Good sign. So hopefully we'll see a lot of flowers here soon. I have more mangoes here. This is a cat huailap, my most favorite variety of mango. Cat huailap mango. Right there, you can see the sign. This is a star cherry, Patenga tuba. I absolutely hate the fruit, but I grow it because I want it in my collection. You know, what can you do? You're trying to collect fruit trees, so sometimes you collect stuff you don't like, but it's absolutely terrible fruit. I don't care who says otherwise. This is Abiyu. This is Abiyu Belosa, which is kind of a wild variety of Abiyu. Does really well. Limited protection, SoCal weather, rain, cold, no problem. So this guy, once spring comes, I take out the covering, and it's absolutely going to take off. This is 1 year worth of growth from a seed, so it's incredibly fast. Very happy to see that. We have some sugarloaf mangoes over here. I have another Pride May, but this is sort of shaped. There's some fruits hanging off of it. I have a Sri Champu Longan. It's supposed to be one of the better varieties of Longan. I have some sugar dragon growing. So I got some mangoes in pots, more wax jambu. It's called jumbo fragrance. More mangoes, Fraylin. More mango, sweet tart. And then these are basically, gosh, I'm forgetting names now. Okay, this is the Sabara, jaboticaba. Good sized tree. Hopefully it's produced next year. I don't know about this year, but I can hope. This is called a 7-inch guava, so they produce long guavas the size of a Coke can. So it's actually started flowering last year, so hopefully we'll see some fruit this year. At this point, I'm kind of wedging them in where I can. Obviously, the spacing here is absolutely terrible. You never want to do that, but it is what it is because we're out of space. So this is the Hycea Sapodilla. This is another variety of Sapodilla. And then here is a butterscotch Sapodilla. Again, another variety of Sapodilla. Here's a Grimmel. So a good sized Grimmel. Should fruit probably next year, maybe even this year. Just a bunch of different jabos. I have the achachas, and then I have a crystal guava here, one of my favorite varieties of guava. Absolutely love it. This is Trumpel Canastel. It's supposed to be a superior variety of Canastel. We'll have to see about that. Okay, honey jar. So honey jar jujube, my absolute favorite so far. I'm not an expert of jujube by any means, but I have tried a few other varieties, and so far honey jar just blows everything away. It's a smaller fruit, but it makes up for it in flavors. It's like eating, I can't even describe it. It's like eating candy. My kids actually call it candy because they just love eating it. So this is a GA866 jujube, supposed to be even more superior than the honey jar in terms of size and taste and sweetness, but the issue is the pollination. I think it's infamous for poor production. So hopefully planting it next to each other will kind of help with the production issue. All right, so we're almost there. So let's see, we got the pawpaw tree. So this is the over-release variety. This is the KSU Atwood variety, flowering and fruiting last year. So I'm excited to see a couple of these varieties kind of doing its thing together, cross-pollinating one another. So this is a Gefner Atemoya, good size Atemoya tree. And believe it or not, I do have some stone fruit trees in the garden. This is a Spice Z Nectar Plum, fast growing. So I got a whole lot more on the side yard. It's just, there's a lot of stuff. I have Anonas, I have cherry Rio Grande, I have more star fruit, I have avocados back there and mangoes back there and stuff like that. So we won't go over there because it's getting way too long at this point, the video. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy the update, and happy Friday to everybody. Spring is coming. Excited for spring. The weather's warming up, things are starting to sprout up, and even my roses and everything, and so I am absolutely stoked, and I cannot wait for spring to come. So take care, guys, until next time.